The Galactic High Council gathered in silence, the weight of an unprecedented crisis pressing upon them. Representatives from over 100 species filled the chamber, their expressions ranging from concern to outright fear. At the center of it all stood Supreme Chancellor Valtoris, his usually commanding presence dulled by unease. "Let's begin," he said, voice tense. "We have a problem. Humanity." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The humans, a relatively new addition to the galactic stage. Their entry into space should have followed the same pattern as every other species before them. Contact, negotiation, assimilation. Yet, humanity had defied all expectations. Counselor Ryvek, a reptilian scholar known for his meticulous record-keeping, cleared his throat. Every species, without exception, has integrated into the Union upon discovery. Some came willingly, seeking knowledge and advancement. Others required persuasion. But humans, he hesitated, glancing at his datapad. They reject everything. Every alliance, every trade agreement, every technological offering, even our medical advancements. Ambassador Zilta of the Vegan Alliance, a species renowned for their economic prowess, leaned forward. They refused economic partnerships, opting instead to rely on their own primitive markets. They dismissed our universal energy solutions, continuing to burn through their planet's own resources. They won't even accept our medical aid, despite their frail biological forms. A skeletal envoy from the Okari Dominion let out a rasping sigh. They are an anomaly, a dangerous one. Chancellor Valtoris frowned. The Union of Stellar Races was built on cooperation, the strength of many, shared across worlds. No species can survive alone. And yet, Ryvek interrupted, humans do. The chamber fell silent. A diplomat from the Carvani Confederacy tapped his clawed fingers on the table. Perhaps they simply don't trust us. We have extended every possible gesture, Zilta countered. We sent ambassadors, trade envoys, scholars. They greet us politely. They speak of cooperation, and then they refuse. A projection flickered to life in the center of the room. A recording from one of the Union's diplomatic missions to Earth. The scene showed an alien emissary offering humanity an entire fleet of interstellar warships in exchange for an alliance. The human representative, a mid-tier official, not even a high-ranking leader, smiled and shook his head. "No, thank you," the human said, as if declining an offered dessert rather than galaxy-altering power. The projection cut out. A thick silence followed. Ryvek's voice wavered. "They don't even seem curious." That was what disturbed the council the most. Every species, upon first contact, had been hungry for knowledge. They had grasped at new technologies, eager to shed the limitations of their homeworlds. Humanity, however, displayed no such hunger. They weren't arrogant. They weren't hostile. They were simply uninterested. The Supreme Chancellor stood. "We need answers. Why would a species reject prosperity? Why would they refuse power? Perhaps they already have it." A voice muttered from the back of the room. All eyes turned to an aged delegate from the Zalari, one of the oldest races in the Union. His pale, translucent skin shimmered under the chamber's lights. The Supreme Chancellor narrowed his eyes. "Explain." The Zalari elder exhaled slowly. "Every civilization that has ever reached the stars has needed something. They have needed guidance, protection, resources. But humans? They act as if they need nothing." Zilta scoffed. "That's absurd. No civilization is entirely self-sufficient. Then why do they behave as if they are?" The room darkened with unease. "They must have a hidden power," an insectoid delegate from the KRYTH Dominion hissed. "Something beyond our understanding." Ryvek hesitated before pulling up another holographic record. "I have examined their technological advancements. Their ships are crude compared to ours. Their weapons are primitive. Their biology is fragile. And yet they thrive." The KRYTH delegates' mandibles clicked. Then how do they maintain their dominance? How do they hold their territory without alliances? The question lingered unanswered. The Supreme Chancellor turned to his intelligence officers. "Have we gathered any intelligence from infiltrators?" A gray-skinned officer stiffened. "We've sent operatives. None have returned. Ziltah's frill brow furrowed. Killed. The officer hesitated. No. Returned. Every agent we embedded within human society simply came back. They resigned, said they were done. They refused to give debriefings. Some even chose to live among them. The word sent a chill through the chamber. The Supreme Chancellor's fingers curled into a fist. We must uncover their secret. Ryvek swallowed. And if they have none, the question echoed. If humans were not hiding anything, if they truly needed nothing, then the galaxy's understanding of civilization, of survival itself, was flawed. And that terrified them more than anything. The orders were clear. Find out what humanity was hiding. The Galactic Intelligence Bureau mobilized its best operatives, deploying covert units to Earth and human colonies. They had infiltrated warlike empires before. They had uncovered the most well-guarded secrets of ancient species. But humanity? Humanity was different. Agents embedded themselves into human cities, corporations, military bases. They observed. They listened. And yet, they found nothing out of the ordinary. No secret military installations hidden beneath the surface. No classified projects aiming for galactic dominance. No clandestine organizations running the shadows. Humans lived normally. One agent, a highly trained infiltrator from the KRYTH Dominion, reported back after 3 years undercover. His report was simple. There is nothing to report. I am staying. That was it. No explanation. No warning. The Bureau lost over a dozen agents the same way. Not dead. Not compromised. Just unwilling to return. The Council demanded answers. If spies couldn't extract information, then analysts would. Teams of the brightest minds in the galaxy were assigned to study human technology, politics, and economy. What they found made no sense. Humanity's technology was wildly inconsistent. Some industries had advanced AI managing entire systems, while others still relied on manual labor. Some ships had crude metal plating, while others had energy shielding that rivaled the Union's best defenses. Their economy was a chaotic mess of independent markets, corporations, and decentralized trade systems. There was no single structure, no centralized plan. And yet, they thrived. A Vigran economist presented his findings to the Council. By every logical metric, their economy should have collapsed centuries ago. Instead, it grows at an unpredictable yet undeniable rate. It is as if they do not need stability. They flourish in chaos. It was the same in their military. Humans had no single, unified defense fleet. Their ships were scattered across independent factions, some controlled by nations, some by private organizations, some even by wandering mercenaries. And yet, despite their fractured nature, no force had ever successfully invaded human space. Every attempt had been met with overwhelming resistance, their forces adapting in ways that no strategist could predict. It wasn't superior weapons. It wasn't advanced tactics. It was something else. Desperation grew among the Union's leaders. If conventional intelligence methods failed, then it was time for direct intervention. The Council authorized a new diplomatic initiative. They would send their most respected envoys to Earth, not to offer deals, but to demand answers. The chosen delegation consisted of the highest-ranking officials from the most powerful species in the galaxy. When they arrived, humanity welcomed them as always, polite, accommodating, yet strangely indifferent. The delegates were granted access to human leaders, industries, even military facilities. They expected to find the truth. Instead, they found more questions. One delegate, a Zalari historian, sat down with a human philosopher. He asked, "Why do you refuse our help? Do you not seek progress?" The human smiled. Progress is a journey, not a gift. The historian frowned. Every species needs guidance, needs allies. You refuse both. We don't need them, the human replied. The conversation ended there. Another delegate, a KRYTH war strategist, met with a human general. Your military is decentralized, inefficient. You have no unity, yet you remain unconquered. How? The general laughed. We don't need unity. We need adaptability. The strategist pressed on. Your ships are mismatched, your tactics inconsistent. It is chaos. And yet, the general said, leaning forward, "We win." The words echoed long after the meeting ended. The Supreme Chancellor himself attended a diplomatic summit with Earth's leaders, pushing for a final answer. "We offer you technology that will make your species stronger, trade that will enrich your worlds, knowledge that will elevate you beyond what you are." The human diplomat nodded, listening carefully. Then, with a calm smile, he said, "We appreciate the offer, but we're fine." The Chancellor's patience broke. "Why? Why do you refuse? What are you hiding?" The human tilted his head, as if the question itself was strange. Then he answered, "Nothing. We simply choose our own way." The Chancellor left Earth that day with more fear than he had ever known, because he realized something terrifying. Humanity wasn't rejecting the Union because they were arrogant. They were rejecting it because they had no need for it. And a species that needed nothing was a species beyond control. The Supreme Chancellor had never felt so powerless. His fleet, the mightiest in the galaxy, hung motionless in Earth's orbit. Below, human cities stretched across the planet, lights twinkling in defiance of the Union's authority. This was supposed to be the final push, a direct confrontation, a demand for answers. Yet, despite the overwhelming presence of Union warships, humanity remained unbothered. The meeting had been arranged in a neutral location, a human diplomatic hub, nothing more than a modest glass and steel structure on the edge of a city. No grand halls, no security escorts. The Chancellor had expected armed guards, high-ranking officials, layers of bureaucracy. Instead, when he arrived, a single mid-level diplomat greeted him with a handshake and smile, as if this was just another routine discussion. It was an insult. The Chancellor sat across from the human, barely containing his frustration. "Do you understand the gravity of the situation?" The human nodded. "Of course. And we appreciate your concerns," the human said casually. "But we stand by our decision." The Chancellor exhaled sharply. "You have refused trade agreements, turned away technological advancements, ignored military pacts. These are not the actions of a rational species." The human simply shrugged. "We don't need them." The Chancellor's hands curled into fists. "Every civilization in the galaxy has benefited from our knowledge. We have uplifted entire species, saved others from extinction. We are offering you the opportunity to stand among the great powers of the universe. And you reject it? Why?" The human leaned back. "Because we are not like you." Silence. The Chancellor struggled to contain his anger. "That is not an answer. It's the only answer that matters." The room was stifling, despite the climate controls. The Chancellor felt something he had never experienced before when dealing with a younger species. Uncertainty. He changed tactics. If you refuse alliances, you make enemies. There are those within the Union who see your defiance as a threat. The human nodded as if he already knew. That would be a mistake. A threat? No, it wasn't a warning nor arrogance. It was a simple statement of fact. The Chancellor studied the human's face. There was no fear, no hesitation. It was as if war was nothing more than an inconvenience. He leaned forward. "What happens if we declare war on you?" The human finally broke into a small, knowing smile. "You won't." The Chancellor's throat tightened. "And why is that?" The human stood, straightening his jacket. "Because deep down you already understand, and that terrifies you more than anything." The meeting ended. The Chancellor returned to his fleet, more shaken than he had been in his entire career. Back at the Council, tensions erupted. Some leaders demanded immediate action. Others hesitated, warning of the unknown consequences of engaging humanity. "They cannot be allowed to operate outside the Union," a Vigran admiral argued. "If we do nothing, they will continue to grow, unchecked and unmonitored. They are too unpredictable," a KR White KH war strategist added. "We must force them into compliance before it is too late." Yet, in every discussion, the same unspoken fear loomed. No one knew what humanity was truly capable of. The Union had defeated warlords, conquered empires, shattered fleets. They had never hesitated to bring non-compliant species to their knees. But with humanity, there was doubt. Why? They were not the most advanced race. Their military was scattered. Their economy was a chaotic mess. Their technology was inconsistent. And yet, every attempt to pressure them, economically, politically, even militarily, had failed. Not because humanity had superior force. Not because they had some hidden advantage. But because they simply didn't care. They didn't need the Union. They didn't fear the Union. And an enemy that neither needs nor fears you is the most dangerous kind of enemy. Some whispered of war. Some spoke of preemptive strikes. Some wanted to isolate them, starve them of resources. But the moment any of these ideas were voiced, they withered under the same realization. If humanity had survived this long without the Union, what else were they capable of surviving? The Supreme Chancellor sat alone in his chamber, staring at the stars. He had spoken to countless rulers, had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. But never had he met a species so utterly untouchable. He knew now why they refused the Union's offers. Because humans had looked at everything the galaxy had to offer, and they had simply decided they didn't need it. The Galactic Union had never faced a crisis like this before. Not a war, not an invasion, something far worse. A mystery. Every model, every prediction, every strategy relied on one fundamental truth. All civilizations had weaknesses. Some were desperate for resources. Others sought security, knowledge, or power. The Union had always exploited these needs, using them to bring new species under its control. But humanity had no such weakness. They had resources, yet they took no more than they needed. They had security, yet they relied on no one else to maintain it. They had knowledge, yet they refused to be led by those who claimed to be wiser. The Union could not manipulate them, could not tempt them, could not control them, and that terrified the galaxy more than any weapon ever could. A final meeting was held, not on Earth, but at the Union's heart, an immense station that had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. The Supreme Chancellor sat at the head of the Grand Hall, his expression unreadable. Across from him sat the human representative. Just one. No advisors. No security detail. Just a single individual, calm and unconcerned, as if they were discussing a simple trade deal rather than the fate of their species. The room was filled with high-ranking officials from the most powerful races in the galaxy. Their voices had been loud before, demanding action. Now they were silent, waiting. The Chancellor spoke first. This is our last attempt. Humanity's refusal to integrate disrupts the natural order. You know this. The human nodded. We do. And still you refuse? Yes. The room tensed. The Chancellor's fingers tapped against the table. Then you leave us no choice. The human raised an eyebrow, amused. Are you declaring war? The question sent a ripple through the chamber. It was asked not in fear, not in anger, but as if it were a simple curiosity. The Chancellor's jaw tightened. If we must. The human exhaled, as if slightly disappointed. No, you won't. The Chancellor leaned forward. And why is that? The human smiled, but it wasn't arrogance. It wasn't even defiance. It was understanding. Because the Union has always been built on control, on knowing every piece of the game, every variable in the equation. But you don't understand us. You don't know what drives us. And that means for the first time in your history, you are afraid. The silence that followed was suffocating. Because it was true. The Union had never fought a war where they did not understand their enemy. Every battle had been calculated, every opponent predictable. But humanity was something else. They adapted, they endured, they defied expectations at every turn. The Union had weapons that could level entire planets, fleets that could reduce civilizations to dust. Yet, against humanity, none of it felt like enough, because they did not know what would happen next. And that uncertainty was more terrifying than any fleet or army. The Supreme Chancellor closed his eyes. He had seen empires rise and fall, had watched proud species be broken, assimilated into the greater whole. He had always believed the Union was inevitable, that no species could resist it forever. But now, for the first time, he saw the truth. Some species were never meant to be controlled. The Chancellor stood. The meeting was over. The human rose as well, extending a hand. Not in challenge, not in mockery, just a simple gesture of respect. The Chancellor hesitated for only a moment before shaking it. Without another word, the human left. No guards escorted them. No ships followed them home, because there was no need. The decision had already been made. The Union would leave humanity alone, not because they wanted to, not because they had lost, but because, in the end, they had never truly been needed at all. And that realization would haunt them forever.